This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Nick, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hey, Frank, how are you today?
Well, busy, and I can only imagine that's an understatement as it relates to what you guys are doing over at your place. I know Cumberland Group has been a cutting-edge operation for many years and providing a lot of trust and leadership to a lot of people that are trying to figure out how to matriculate through the digitalization of our reality. That said, one of the things I know that is a very hot topic right now is automation, and you know, I think one of the things that a lot of people really don't understand is the impact of this whole thing we say is disruptive, and that the reality is that it doesn't just happen vertically, it's obviously happening horizontally. And in a lot of cases, we'll talk here on Tech Talk about kind of the same thing, only different, meaning the technology and where that seems to be heading is relatively the same for everybody, but it's that nuance, and sometimes a pretty big nuance that takes you vertically into a particular marketplace or into a particular functionality. Let's talk a little bit about that. How is automation and programmability currently affecting companies? I mean, the whole organization, really.
Well, it's something that's kind of been at the tips of people's tongues for a couple of years now with, you know, things like DevOps, which is, you know, the merging of development groups inside of organizations and their operations group, but a lot of that is culminating now into what people are doing with automation, not just in IT automation, but in business workflow automation. So things like workflows, systems, processes, product development, any type of application process inside of a company. These are all kind of starting to merge together, and kind of what I like to call the programmability of everything, where everything is becoming so software defined that people can use this now to do things faster and quicker and with more agility than they could before. So part of that is automation. Part of that is, you know, the evolution of how IT is moving more into the business process and away from, you know, just being, you know, a group that's sitting in the basement or down the hall in the dark closet.
Well, you know, we've been talking about convergence. I mean, you know, another thing we'll talk about here on Tech Talk is terminology. Terminology just can't keep up with the technology and the speed of change. So in many cases, we don't have names to describe something. By the time we begin to group kind of identify with it, it's already gone and moved on to the next thing. I guess partly where I'm going is that we've got now a convergence that everybody's kind of promised about all the things that were possible in the future. Now you've got truly source to consumption, right? I mean, when you're talking automation and software-driven, it goes all the way to the actual sourcing, all the way through to the actual selling of the product. I'm talking about now sales automation as well.
Interconnected and wired. Rapid delivery of products and solutions and services, just like you said.
Now, I don't know if you had an opportunity to go to the Georgia Technology Summit in last week or so, but one of the emphasis was on robotics. And one of the things they had was it turns out that the Georgia Tech has a school of robotics musicians or musical robotics or something. I got a little lost on what the term was that they called the actual academic teaching, but these were interactive, self-teaching, artificial intelligence-driven robotics who actually could get involved with an actual live musician and jam, and could actually learn from the cross communication and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not saying that that's all about automation, but certainly both internally within the computer and externally with some of the mechanisms and some of the automative technologies that are now are out there. I guess one of the things also is that whole cliche about 50% of the titles are going to exist and 50% of them are not.
Right. I think the robotic musician, while practical uses for that may be far inside of business, but it's a good analogy for I think what is happening. Things like you said, things that are were once thought as science fiction or once thought as just not being possible, that we're able to automate more and more of it these days, and standing on the shoulders of others who are who are contributing a lot of this innovation to the industry to develop these really phenomenal ways of doing things that are previously would have been thought of, well, that's going to take a human to do, or that's going to take a very expert person to do, like play an instrument. In this case, it could be automating your business or making business decisions for you. A lot of the trades that are happening on the stock market, they're all done automatically. It's happening everywhere.
Well, let's go into a little bit of just that. I mean, obviously, things can either happen to you or happen for you, and I don't think there's anything that's going to stop this speed. Toffler talked about it decades ago, but the speed of turnover and the change now is hybriding. I think probably if you're on my side, the side, let's say, of enterprise and first-generation business, entrepreneurs, management, that kind of thing, you're constantly challenged by this idea that you have to make good, solid investments, stay effectively competitive. But the real challenge is you can buy into a system, and 20 minutes later it's a legacy system, and somebody's coming in with something faster and more impactful than what you were using before. I think one of the things that comes up many times, Nick, in our conversations is that in a lot of cases the company representative doesn't even know they have a problem because they don't know there's a solution out there. So I would think that a lot of what you have to do is as much consult as it is evangelize to get people to understand.
You're absolutely right. A lot of it is education, where we are having to talk to our clients. We're having to have conversations, and we try to do it through numerous different formats. But one of the things that works really well for us is we do these lunch and learn type sessions where we bring in companies to just talk about technology. It's not a sales thing. It's just education, because, like you said, there is a lack of sometimes understanding the problem exists to know that there is a solution for it. But once you know the solution for the problem, then it's one of those almost like, how could I not have known or have not done this before?
Sure.
And it's a wonderful thing. It's finding those problems that people didn't think that there was a solution for, but there is one, and with that solution comes a lot of benefits for both the enterprise and the team working with them.
It wasn't all that long ago where I think all of us kind of, we were talking about terminology before. One of the terms that has been a hot term for, I guess, a whole lot longer than it appears, but certainly for the last year has been the word disruptive. I mean, it started out as almost a four-letter word, and you did not want to be disruptive. And now it's a case where unless you're disruptive, you can't play, kind of a thing. And sadly enough, though, if you're a management executive and you're trying to figure out how to deal with a 10-year marketing plan, well, let's go ahead and make that 5-year. Let's go ahead and make that 1 year. Oh, no, let's see what we can do next week kind of a thing, because you don't know what you're going to expect from, worse, not even a competitor, from someone that wasn't even in the business before that comes with something from left field, and boom, your entire industry changes. I guess from your perspective, because you're right on where the quote-unquote tire meets the road, number one, obviously there's a lot of feeling about disruption being negative, and I guess you'd agree it's not really. It's a reality, but it is somewhat a positive change towards a more efficient future kind of a thing, I guess. But the other part of it is that can you take advantage of it, or do you fall victim of it? And is it only about money? Is it about an ability to afford to or not to get involved?
Well, like you said, the disruptive, the word disruptive has always taken a negative connotation when people talk about it. But like you said, there's a lot of innovations and advantages that you can take advantage of, or leverage these innovations and put yourself ahead in the market, in front of your competition, do things faster. But it's very disruptive in that, like you said, you buy something and maybe 20 minutes later it's now outdated, or you are overwhelmed with the number of choices just to do a task or a simple process, or you're looking at automating something inside your organization. You go out and do some research on it, and you find that there is 24 different solutions for it, and 5 minutes later you search again and now there's 36. So like, what do I pick? What do I use? And that's really what's disruptive about a lot of this is it's that rapid change of technology. And the one side of the coin is companies that don't embrace it are going to have probably a challenge staying competitive, a challenge keeping up, a challenge doing a lot of the next generation types of things. But the ones who are able to embrace it, the ones who are able to take advantage of this disruption and use it to their advantage by not fearing it, by trying to understand it, by starting small and kind of moving into that world of digitization. The digitization of the enterprise has been, a very hot topic in the last, couple of years, that really brings a competitive edge and allows companies to adapt and shift even with their own industry, not just inside of technology, inside their company, but within their own particular vertical with the market trends or the whims of their customers or the shifts in the way new things come out, that they can actually deliver faster and quicker and pivot like these smaller little startups have always been able to. Large companies are able to do this now by adopting a lot of these methods and can do this with a high level of quality as well, where they're not delivering faster and delivering with less quality, but they're doing both.
You know what, it was like an epiphany you just mentioned, because we were both kind of buzzing around digitalization, and you kind of hit it right on the dot. But one of the things you said really, I thought, exactly. I think if there's anything that I get frustrated when I mentioned to you before about so many times that first generation entrepreneur or that business leader just can't keep abreast of everything that's going on. So he's running his or she's running his core business, and some 3D printer comes out and puts them out of business, literally or figuratively.
Right.
And so now it's a case where you have to almost live in the reality. It's a cliche that change is the only thing that's constant. We joked about it for so long. But I guess now it's a case, you hit something, and that is the business processes are relatively the same. The acceleration, the complementation, the servicing functions, the detailing, the automation, quote unquote, that can happen from the IT or from other forms of technology or advanced types of equipment of one kind or another. But it all still boils down to business processes. And I think the point you made could be really helpful to a lot of individuals who are trying to figure out what to do. Because I think what you're saying is that a company can identify the parts of their business where they can begin looking at this whole issue of digitalization, right? How does that work?
Yeah, so you hit the nail right on the head. It's looking at how you can use it inside your own company. The IT industry learned this 5 or so years ago, where they figured out how to merge their operations team and their development team. So kind of what I mentioned on the onset of this call was taking those two disparate groups and putting them together made for a more complete ecosystem inside the IT culture and made things smooth between those two different groups, where previously had been a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of back and forth. Companies today are actually taking a very similar stance and taking a lot of those same ideas that were learned from that process and looking at how to bring their IT into, let's say, their marketing group, bringing their IT operations into their accounting group, bringing it into the way their users interact, because you get two people together that have these different perspectives on business. One is thinking about it from a pure technology standpoint. Another one, let's say, somebody in your accounting or HR department is thinking about it from a process standpoint. And this is where you find those problems we didn't know were problems, but we can solve. Because the guy who's thinking about it from an IT perspective doesn't understand maybe the business perspective. The business perspective guy doesn't think there's a solution because he doesn't understand that there is some technology out there that can fix this. So you start merging your IT operations in with your other parts of your business processes. You start finding all of these little, I call them nuggets of goodness, right, where it's like, did not realize we can make an improvement there. There's a room for efficiency gain, or there's a frustration that the customer is or that the employee is having at this point. We can now fix that, make that process 10 times faster.
Well, I know that, when somebody tells me that I've got a new version, dealing with a piece of equipment that I've got a comfort level, as it's kind of an upgrade is the last thing I want to hear about. It's like, no, I just had a comfort level. I'm trying to figure this. You're going to upgrade me. I don't want to be upgraded. And I really think if you're a business professional and you're running to catch the plane, you don't like anything that's going to disrupt your procedures, the things that you've got control. And process, obviously, is all integrated into that as well in terms of the profitability and the competitiveness of a particular business. One thing for sure, and I think you'd agree with this, Nick, it always boils down to trust. It always boils down to trust, because the bottom line of it is that, and especially when it comes to Cumberland, you guys have so much expertise and so much ability to navigate through this incredible, very complex market that we live in today. And yet the other side goes, in a way, not just looking for the answers, but answers that they can, quote-unquote, trust, because there's so much hyperbole out there and so much noise. It almost seems like everybody kind of is saying the same thing, only different. So I'll go with the cliche is everybody needs to do the same thing, only different. But I think in a lot of cases, many of us are saying the same thing. But the bottom line of it is, and it's kind of a blatant pitch because I love you guys, but I think that as far as one of the better sources of not just capability but of trust is the Cumberland Group, and you guys do a great job over there, Nick. Hey, listen. Interesting subject, one that is never going to be stopped talking about. We certainly got a beginning stake in the ground. Hopefully you'll join us again and we'll go into more detail. But for the moment, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us for a couple of minutes today on Tech Talk.
Thanks, Frank. And if anybody would like some more information, visit our website at cumberlandgroupit.com.